Hello, and welcome once again to It's a Frankly Hairy podcast. This is your host, Frank Weber, welcoming you back to the forest. I'm so glad, so thankful that you can join me every week to discuss or learn about, I guess is a better term right now, riveting topics with me and my take on them. Something that I've been noticing recently that I wanted to chime in on today. I've had a lot of people recently on various shows, various podcasts talking about the chronic disease issues that exist in America right now. A few of them have even gone before the Senate or Congress to testify on these. I, as a healthcare practitioner in dentistry, should also chime in on this. It does affect us, and we have some tangentially related things to talk about on this subject as well. So I'm going to give my take on this today. The main issue when it comes to chronic illness seems to be the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry. There's a lot of things that have been added to our food in this country for a number of decades now, whether it's preservatives or colorants or taste additives, none of which are particularly healthy for us. And many of them, as we have heard, are illegal in many, many other countries. And it sounds like for good reason. This food generally seems to be pretty tasty, fairly inexpensive. And it seems to be making us part of the problem with the obesity epidemic in our country, leading to that, as well as heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I mean, you name it. We've got it in this country right now. And then you have the pharmaceutical industry that, instead of focusing on cures, is really focusing more on just treating the symptoms and helping people to live with these diseases. The main reason being, if they cure something, like with the vaccines of old that eradicated things like smallpox and measles, you eventually get to a point where there is no need for your product anymore and you can't make any more money. So it appears they have an interest in keeping chronic disease around and developing new drugs just to help people get by. But the main value, of course, that we should all have in healthcare is to actually cure people of their diseases and ailments. And that's not happening. So there's a lot of great people coming on and talking about this. You know, RFK Jr. is doing, in conjunction with President Trump's campaign, is the Make America Healthy Again campaign. And you've got other folks like Jillian Michaels who are out there, and some others going on shows and testifying to Congress on these issues. Good people, both the hosts and the guests, really enjoy listening to them, enjoy listening to their insight. There are two things, though, that are either implied or they're not really telling you directly about these issues. And obviously, the number one thing is that this is about big companies, possibly in the back pocket of politicians, wanting to make big money. And again, I said this before on this show and in my writing. You know, I'm a capitalist. I think it's great that everybody can make money and hopefully do so while helping people. I know some people, depending on their values, would say, well, it's something to at least control symptoms and help people live with it. But then I look at it and I say, well, there's something else. You know, we should be trying to cure people and trying to help them live as healthy a life as they can and live life to the full. So why are we not doing that? So I kind of call this, it could be at best what I would call amoral capitalism. not to judge anybody, but, kind of an amoral capitalism where the system has kind of been rigged to work a certain way for the most profit. When it comes to these large industries in the food and pharmaceuticals, I do believe you can make money and actually truly help people at the same time. I think that's traditionally what that was one of the allures of healthcare for me and a lot of other people. You can do good and you can do no harm while actually helping people and helping them live better lives and more healthy lives. But that doesn't seem to be what's going on here. So I call that amoral capitalism. The worst case scenario, though, is if what we're looking at is a true case of greed and perhaps a for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil type thing. But again, I don't necessarily want to press judgment on them for that. The other thing that I want to tell you that I haven't really heard from these folks, as much as I admire them, is that we also, in our daily living, are exposed to a lot of things, whether they be in our food or environment or something else in everyday life. We absolutely cannot totally get away from everything and still be able to live the best life we possibly can. For instance, I think everybody should be able to go out into the sun and enjoy the sunshine for a few minutes each and every day, if possible, and clothes free, ideally. But then you also have the notion of, you also don't want to get a sunburn and potentially expose yourself to getting skin cancer, so you have to protect yourself somehow in that regard. You have to balance it out for yourself. And so you have to figure out what's right for you. You have to realize that these things are out there, and we can't live in a bubble. We can't live on an island. We just have to, we can make the situation better with our food and drugs, of course, but we can't totally get rid of all these things and not be able to live free human lives and live full lives as a result. To do so would be placating to this insidious safety culture that's going on right now, where people are afraid to take risks and afraid to, do a lot of things that are outside the box. So that's the important issue. Two important issues there that the experts aren't really talking about. Here I wanted to talk a little bit about a little bit of diet and a little bit of things regarding diet and nutrition and some other concerns and materials as they relate to the dental profession, at least in terms of what I know and what I've been taught or what I've experienced. And then at the end, we'll talk about the problems that involve, as far as undoing these issues in healthcare in general. We have some real problems with our healthcare system now, how it works. And that's part of the issue in trying to undo a lot of these things. I haven't really talked too much about dentistry on this show, but there is a relationship to chronic ailments and concerns about some of our materials, so I figured that I would talk about that today. Haven't really been able to make a lot of jokes about it so far. I'm part of the profession still. I still have a license. I'm still a dentist. I'm still a graduate. But I'm not really an apologist for the profession either. And I have some criticisms of it for sure. A lot of the politics and expectations that turned out to be something different in the end still affects me greatly. But let's go ahead and talk about a few things here. I don't know that this is really a chronic condition, but dental caries, which is a fancy term for cavities, is not really, I don't know if it's a chronic condition, but it's definitely very prevalent in our society because of refined sugars in our diet. that is, versus raw sugars, that if you were to take a little sugar cane from the field and eat it as a snack, or even brush your teeth with it or whatever, it's not going to cause cavities because it's unrefined. But we have refined sugar everywhere in our society, and so cavities or soft spots in your teeth are, I would consider to be epidemic. There was a time, by the way, when refined sugar and cavities were actually relegated to the rich, if you didn't know that, just like clothing was, which I've talked about on this show before. But now it's in everything, and it's fairly inexpensive and very accessible for a lot of people. That's the number one. Obviously, that's the number one dental concern in society, and all of dental public health really is just the prevalence of so many cavities, and people's diet first, and then their hygiene. So no, that is another issue that has not come up with a lot of the experts here. I have had some people, Dr. Macari, I believe, who's been on some podcasts like Megyn Kelly's show and a couple of others, has talked about fluoride. And a lot of the issue kind of seems to be about route of administration. Fluoride is very good at strengthening your tooth's enamel and preventing cavities. So in a topical sense, whether you're brushing and rinsing with a fluoride toothpaste or going to your hygiene appointment, having fluoride applied, and then brushing it off and rinsing it half an hour later, doesn't seem to be a big deal. There does seem to be a problem with the fluoride in water, even though it's low levels, and ingesting it, or at least there's a controversy over it, which I just started really thinking about just a few weeks ago. I've been practicing all these years, but supposedly there is some brain concerns if you ingest fluoride. And it affects things like the frontal lobe or the pineal glands. I haven't studied a lot of that research. They say it kind of gathers in there and collects, and may cause some problems with motor function and circadian rhythm, perhaps. But again, there further research is needed, and I have to study that a little bit more. Usually when they put fluoride in water, which means you're going to ingest it, that would mean that the fluoride goes throughout your circulation, goes all over your body. And of course, you have this concern about it collecting in your brain and causing some neurological issues. That's something to consider. The only thing I would say against that, though, is that around here in West Texas, we have a lot of people who live in the rural regions. They live on rural well water, which has a lot of fluoride in it. And if they consume that before about the age of 8, it affects their tooth development, and they get a lot of fluorosis stain on their permanent teeth. That is usually unaesthetic and unsightly, but they have been ingesting fluoride at much higher levels than anything in municipal water supplies. And they seem to be okay. They're still alive. I don't know if there's a toxicity associated with it, but that needs to be studied as well if we're going to talk about any potential of fluoride toxicity, because usually what they're putting in municipal water supplies is pretty low. I have one or two other things here. Amalgam fillings, which are the silver fillings that are one option for filling your tooth with a cavity after some preparation, of course. Those have largely dropped out of the market, I think, over the years because they're unaesthetic and people just don't want them for the looks. I mean, we now have composite materials, which I'm actually going to talk about here in a little bit, that are pretty strong and sturdy and look very good. And so silver amalgams have fallen by the wayside. Been some controversy though for over 30 years now, really, because the silver fillings have some mercury in them. I was taught that the amount that you potentially get is greatest when they're first placed and when they're removed. Now, when they're solid and in your mouth and ready for function, no problems with them, I was told that the leakage isn't really there. Now, apparently there are some other people who say, like, yes, the leakage of mercury is there, especially when you chew. This is another issue of differential research. And I know it's not quite as important because silver fillings aren't as prevalent as they used to be in society, but we still use them some in public health, and we used them at the prisons. I was always concerned because years ago, and I imagine their stance is still the same, the ADA, when you looked for guidance from them, like on their website about what their stance on this was, they couldn't really tell you one way or the other. They were kind of in a wishy-washy middle. But since it's kind of falling out of favor, it's not as big of an issue now. But then you kind of wonder again, where does the truth really lie on that? The next material I'm going to talk about real quick is gutta percha, which is a orange or pinkish rubbery material that they use to fill root canals. I have not personally seen any research or heard anything on this being toxic at all. In fact, we're told that it's very inert, very safe, and the best root canal filling material that they've had to date. The only reason that I bring this up is that one time in practice several years ago, some patient who was watching some Netflix special or something called me up, and the front desk did not appropriately screen him and somehow routed him to my office to talk to him. And he gave me this big kind of judgmental, sanctimonious lecture on why we're using all these materials, and he included primarily gutta percha in his argument. So I don't know where he's getting that stuff from. I try to educate people. With what I know, and this is true, by the way, in other healthcare professions. You're just talking about what you've learned in school, what you've learned since then in the literature and continuing education and whatever. I haven't seen any problems with gutta percha. So, last thing I do want to tell you real quick, though, and this is something that has always been puzzling to me. We just talked about dental composites, the tooth-colored or white filling materials that are much more prevalent and favored over amalgam nowadays. We use a ton of plastics in the dental profession. And I don't know, these are all petroleum products, plastics, not unlike your plastic bottles and plastic cups, plastic everywhere nowadays. Some people on these chronic disease shows have said that we have plastic particles ingrained in our brains now and other cells. So it's odd to me that people haven't said much about dental composite fillings or dentures or all the other things, all the other ways we use plastics in this profession, custom trays, impression trays, that sort of thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if something gets started later. But it's odd how it's been very quiet over the years. But you do have to know, like, plastics are everywhere, and they're everywhere in dentistry. And if it's true what they're saying about our cells, then we need to, our body's cells, then we need to take heed to that. So one last thing that doesn't help any of this, whether it's in my profession or the medical profession, the system as far as healthcare professionals go, it's very difficult, I feel, to be able to spend time with each patient individually, give them a custom diagnosis and treatment plan, because the system is really not allowing it right now. And other people on their shows will mention this, but and I get really frustrated, and part of the reason why I'm not there anymore is because everything is about production in order to make a certain baseline amount of money for the day, because insurance companies continue to pay less and less and less, adjusted for inflation or other means, trying to control the costs. And there's also some issues because they won't cover certain diagnoses and certain treatments. And so, and like I said, we are running around, don't really have a lot of time to spend a lot with patients and really try to determine what is, together with them, what is best for them. And so that just adds to the problem of this chronic disease issue. And also makes people like me very frustrated, because that's really not running around and being a factory working on people and not really giving them the best care and getting to know them was not something that I signed up for. Well, I hope that was helpful. We're already past 20 minutes here. Kind of feel like that was kind of a glum and somewhat depressing episode there. I feel like I need to do something real quick before we go to liven it up. I don't know. I don't feel like, I don't want to like make sounds into the microphone or we're not on video yet, so it's not like I can take off my shirt or something for your entertainment. But anyway, that's everything really in a nutshell. Hope everybody's enjoying their fall out there, enjoying football season. I don't know. I don't really like to talk too much about teams because you start to get really, really niche, and people kind of maybe turn you off as a result. Some of them, especially if you don't follow my team. I know Tech won a game late the other night against Arizona. My goodness, it was so late. It just seems like we're the worst 5-1 team in the country, currently 3-0 in the conference, and still will be actually when this episode airs. I don't know if somebody's going to come along and knock our block off, or if we may actually have kind of a special season on our hands. It's really an interesting time, really fun time to be a fan, if you look at it in that regard. But anyway, I guess that's about it. I really don't have anything else to say. I do really I would emphasize, I want to hear from you, and I love your feedback. I love your input. I would love to hear any kind of suggestions you can possibly give for the show. I feel sometimes a little stuck on it. I don't know what you can, maybe you can offer something. Do you want video? Do you want actual guests? I think both would be good in combination with one another. I don't know that video, doing it alone, would necessarily work that well, but I'm always looking forward to, I was looking for suggestions and feedback, but I never really hear from you. I would love to hear that, love to improve for you. I think this could be really big. I think I've said that a lot before. In any case, please, as always, hit subscribe. Tell your friends, family, coworkers about me. Had a real mass download or something the other night. It's like 18 or 20 episodes. It's kind of nice to see something like that. And then you have other days where you don't see any. But anyway, that's all my calls to action. Also would encourage you to be healthy, be into diet and exercise, and Let's live a healthy life. Let's live our best lives, as a lot of people say. Anyway, I guess I'm really rambling now. So this is Frank Weber. I'm signing off from the forest, and it's a Frankly Hairy podcast. Love you for joining me. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Till then, bye.